Oh, hello there. Yes, shooby-doo wah wah wah, isn't it? Yes, the real height of summer. Mad dogs and Farage men go out in the Clacton sun. Except, of course, they don't. Still no news on his surgeries. Anyway, we'll come back to him in a bit. There was a great tweet yesterday by Carol Vorderman, sort of pointing you in the direction of a Byline Times piece, which is about nefarious money and nefarious UK grifters, which I recommend that you go and have a look at. I'll link down below. One of the amusing things about last election was seeing Carol Vorderman, who's very much a national treasure in operation, and they tried smearing her at the last election, saying that she'd had some plastic surgery. As far as I can make out, that was about as far as that one went. It didn't really stick because for those of us that kind of remember these things, Carol Vorderman was very much a staunch supporter of the Conservative Party, and then, like the rest of us, she realised that the Conservative Party had turned into a very, very, very nasty, corrupt business machine, and she spoke out against it using her platform, which is good. That's what people should do. People should use their platform saying these things. So with Carol Vorderman on her case, it's probably not going to look so good for various people because she will go for the jugular. Speaking of which, we have Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage et al. Going to talk about today, just the general grifters, and I count him as one because as far as I can make out, I've done some digging, the guy has not done a surgery at his constituency yet. He's rather busy talking in that particular echo chamber that is, for example, Fox News. Still spouting absolute drivel. Never mind. Whoever those people are that believe in what he has to say will tune in and believe whatever he has to say. But here he is. Keir Starmer poses the biggest threat to free speech we've seen in our history. I think what he means is his history, because throughout history there have been very large numbers of crackdowns on free speech. For example, off the top of my head, some sort of Chartists. The government didn't like the Chartists going around reading things in newspapers, so they put a hefty tax on newspapers, which led to very much the rise of pamphleteers because they missed the tax on that. Yes, that was a lot bigger, and historically, of course, well, yeah. But of course, in Nigel's life, possibly, yeah, in our history, in his history, what he means by this, of course, is that having seen the net result of all of those years of nasty rhetoric from people like Nigel against certain minorities, we've seen the full fruits of it over the last week or so, and the last thing these people want is to be held accountable for it. So, of course, anybody suggesting any proper notion of countering absolute free speech is gonna get it from them. The problem is, of course, that we've never had free speech in this country. It's not written as part of our constitution. We do have it as part of our human rights, which we are still just about clinging on to. Various parties do, of course, want to get rid of that and replace it by a Bill of Rights. Yeah, I bet that won't work. Yes, so what these people really mean, of course, is that they reserve the right to say anything they like online with no consequences. And unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way. There is no such thing as an absolutist version of free speech, because if there was, you'd be able to go on various shows and simply complain very loudly, shouting-wise, that somebody was fat, ugly and stupid. Now you can see the way that wouldn't work. Free speech absolutism is bunkum. It's a mirage that these people put up. What they mean is they don't want you to hold them accountable for what they do. One of the reasons why Nigel Farage has been so quiet over the last week or so is because potentially he could find himself facing some nasty legal conundrums. The rest of the grifters, and I don't really want to sort of go into a list here, but I'm just going to pick on a couple, have basically seen the dangers as well, because instead of having a very, very sympathetic government combined with a nice media ecosphere that they can rely on, the government has gone and the government might well get a bit hacked off with them if they continue being the nasty bigots that they are. For example, we have Graham Linehan here, who's managed over the last few weeks, along with Posey Parker, to basically very much park his vehicle on the, yes, I'm firmly on the side of those very far-right people. Okay, he was always going to do it, but here he is cheering on Dougie Murray. Yes, of course, as you do. Doesn't really matter that Douglas Murray is a nasty racist. Graham Linehan sits on that side of the fence, and he knows where his current checks are going to come from. Obviously, it's what he's going to do, isn't he? I mean, he can still rely on, sort of sympathetic audiences with GB News. But again, what's going to happen, for example, if GB News goes? There's a reasonable chance that Talk TV will go with it. So where exactly will his platform be? Or will he have to do the whole Lotus Eaters sort of Lawrence Fox thing, whereby you just end up desperately seeking ad revenue, which may well disappear if the government brings in new legislation? Yeah? I mean, that Father Ted musical is never going to happen. Maybe he should think about actually writing something or just getting a job like the rest of us. But that wouldn't do, would it? And, probably the most the most pertinent one of the tweets I saw yesterday was from Turning Point. Ironically, yesterday there was a stabbing in London by a white guy, and the hero of the hour was a Muslim guy. Even Tommy Robinson had to sort of make various noises about that. Anyway, here's Turning Point, okay? So it's worthwhile unpacking exactly what Turning Point is saying here, okay? When an individual stabs strangers at random, it should be classified as a terror attack. Had said individual used a firearm rather than a knife, it would be automatically considered terrorism. Deliberately avoiding the term terrorism creates more tensions than using the term. Okay, that sounds reasonably innocuous, but what are they saying here? Well, what they're saying is here, I mean, something totally unworkable. They basically say that anyone who gets stabbed should be called a terror incident, which is laughable because there are plenty of women that stab their husbands who are abusive, and they're not terrorists, are they? They are people perhaps exacting revenge after 12 years of misogynistic abuse. But, of course, what Turning Point is saying here, another group of people that would be squirming at laws which would clamp down on being a bit nasty online. What they're really saying is here, what we want, because I think they actually have got kind of used to this idea that anyone cares what they say. But anyway, what we want is for anything to be counted as terrorism, and that way any black people that commit any form of crime will be terrorists, and we can complain bitterly then about the rise of terrorism. Yeah, because what exactly is it that Turning Point do? What exactly is it that Graham Linehan does? What exactly is it indeed that Nigel Farage does? Because he doesn't appear to have a job as an MP. Well, what they do is they accept money from you if you're foolish enough to give it to them, but primarily what they do is they accept nefarious money from abroad to further a vastly nasty right-wing agenda. And if you want to see the vastly nasty right-wing agenda, just have a look at the plans that the Trump campaign are thinking they might hopefully come in with in January 2025, yeah? That whole lovely Heritage Foundation project that there is, which would turn America into a one-party state. No two ways about it. And that's what these people want as well. They will complain bitterly about their freedom, but by God, they don't mean yours. That's what they're into. These people have no moral compass whatsoever, and therefore should face the full force of Carol Vorderman saying rude things about them. Because after all, no one lives through that, do they? No. Anyway, do have a lovely, slightly cooler day. Enjoy. Yeah. Passing me by, no doubt. It's a long, hot summer. Oh, yeah.